Well, hello again. This is Dr. Bart Rademaker. Prescription for your transformation. Hashtag real people. Hashtag real conversations. And today is another delightful day for me because I'm bringing to you this intelligence that's around us. Intelligence that you can then use and tap into to make some really distinctive changes in your life because you're getting the information that's really going to be worthwhile for you. And bringing these voices from extraordinary people around the world is really what it is that I want to do. And today, to call this person that's joining me right now is an inspiration is totally an understatement. He's such an incredible guy, such an amazing leader, doing so many incredible things, and also coming out with an incredible book. But just in brief, checking my notes here, he's a successful businessman, community leader, peak performance coach, and also a major thought leader because he's coming out with this amazing book that will be a New York's bestseller within the next couple of months when it actually does come out. And it's an absolute must book that you're going to want to get. And time isn't the problem, you are. And so that's really the topic of our talk today. And I really want to welcome Chad Cooper. Welcome, and thank you for joining me on this lab.
Thanks, Bart. I am enjoying the weather today. Super excited to be able to share that with everybody else. I don't care whether you've got snow or you got palm trees. It's always a beautiful day.
Well, you're the smart and lucky one in my books because you live in Florida and you can see the healthy tan that you have. And you know what? Truthfully, being a plastic surgeon that I am, I also have great medical insights. And we're going to be talking a little bit about medical insights as well. But sun is healthy, sun is good. And where there's a lack of sun, by the way, there are problems with, moods. And we're going to kind of check into or segue into that later on. But I really want to start off with a statement that and a question that you posed to me earlier on, and I can read it from my notes. What is it that you do if the way that you're living is not giving the results that you want? And that really is a corner topic of our talk today. And so tell me about what that means to you and why this is a question that you bring up with a lot of your clients.
Yeah, it's a really powerful question, Bart. What do you do when the life you're living isn't giving you the results you want? I think that there's a large number of people today. It's really still kind of the aftermath. We haven't really come out of the effects of the 2007 crash. You have people who maybe they were in the stock market earlier and in 2007 gave them a bad taste or they didn't want to take the risk anymore. And so they have missed the growth and the launch of that. Then you have others that have been in there waiting, being safe. And now we see a bit of a down cycle in the market today. We can look at our jobs that many people have, and maybe you're fortunate enough that you have a career. And I was just reading an article this morning about in San Francisco, the epidemic of Silicon Valley, people working in these big name companies, and they can't even afford to supply food for their household the entire paycheck. They literally don't have, they're living paycheck to paycheck. And many people are living that way. To maybe it's your physical health. And so I think that there's several roles that we play in life. And the question is what if these attempts aren't still getting you the results that you want? Is it really the fault of our environment? Is it the fault of our economy? Or do we need to start taking a look at ourselves? Is there something unique going on here that has never happened in the world before? I would argue that no, we go in cycles and it has happened before. So what's unique about it? Well, the common denominator would be really how we look at it. What is the recipe that we're using to become legendary in our own lives, to create that lifestyle that we want? And so really, I guess to sum it up, Bart, would be the things that got us to this stage in life may be exactly what's holding us back from reaching the next level of our life.
I would totally agree with that. And, there's a very interesting statistic when you look at it and you can, understand this any which way that you want. But back in the 1900s, 90% of the people were working for themselves. They had their own career, their own jobs, their own store, whatever it is. And only 10% actually worked for somebody else. Now you go fast forward to the 80s and 90s. Now it's only 10% of the people are working for themselves. So 90% of the population is really dependent on an institution or an entity that kind of in some form is affecting and influencing their lives. And part of the challenge then for so many of these people is they don't understand what that shift really means. Because back in the 1900s, the buck stopped with you. If you didn't go to work, you didn't get the results. I mean, obviously, if you don't do the work here, you're not going to get paid. But clearly, the level and the standards that you had to adopt back in the 1900s when you're working for yourself was a lot higher. And so you had to be responsible for your own life. And it almost seems that when our lifestyles, in a sense, have become so much more comfortable and easy, that many people have forgotten that accountability. And it also happens with health. And I really want to talk about the things that you're suggesting about what it is to have a legendary life. But I want to first start with you, because just like with Gandhi saying, you've got to be the change if you want to change the world. And so you have a very remarkable story. I mean, you're an award-winning Marine. I mean, you're basically a super athlete, and you got an injury, and you recovered from that.
Injuries.
And,
so several years of that, just recovering from the most recent right now, yeah.
But you did something that I think is unique. And so for the people that are listening, share your story.
So my story, I won't go back to the very beginning, but I was in the Marines, and I was very good at what I did. And I also enjoyed what I did. One of the things that I learned in the Marines is that when the mind kicks in and says, hey, Bart, you're about to experience pain, it also will tell you, hey, this is uncomfortable, quit. But the reality, what I learned is, in the moment of boot camp, I had the flu, and the drill instructors don't care. They just go, keep going. So they have a very unique way of helping you overcome your illness, Bart. And so I'm going to share with you, if you ever go through Marine boot camp and you ever get sick, here's their very empathetic way of helping you. They made me do push-ups while I had diarrhea and the flu. And it was, literally just, it was terrible. Made me do push-ups for 45 minutes nonstop. Now, most people go, you can't do 45 minutes of push-ups. I did when I was sick. There was a lot of pain there. In fact, there was a little bit of suffering that was going on with that. But what that taught me very early on at age 19, 18 or 19 years old was that the body is capable of doing far more than the brain will really want to allow us to do. Right. And so I learned and leveraged and used that through the rest of my career, whether it was the first time that I retired from the IT industry to being a major sponsor triathlete. And in the process of doing that, I've done some very physically enduring things. And a result of doing that, why I share that story with you, is that I learned to push beyond my comfort zone, just a little bit at a time. When you go too far out, you're going to rebound like a rubber band that you let go to, it can hurt when it snaps back. But if we just go a little bit, our comfort zone gets bigger. Our model of the world gets bigger. Well, try having that identity of retiring at age 35, being a Regimental Marine of the Year, and being a major sponsor triathlete, on and on and on, many, many accomplishments, and then go to being broken. So it first started with having flat feet when I was in the Marines, which I was able to overcome, and being told, oh, you can no longer be a Marine. Well, there's a saying, once a Marine, always a Marine. And so when the Marines tell you, hey, you can't do this anymore, that's an identity blow. The second is, and I dealt with that and overcame that. The second, and went on to do marathons and Ironmans, etc. The second is then doing, I wanted to see what I would take to break me. I found it. It was 15 triathlons in 1 year, and I shredded my shoulder. And people are like, oh, you rotator cuff. I wish it was rotator cuff. The recovery would have been a lot sooner. And in the process of that surgery, I then got a staph infection that went undiagnosed and grew for a year. And as a doctor, that's a nasty, nasty thing. And trying to get rid of it has still been a challenge, and to get rid of it entirely. They tell me I'll have it forever. to then going across the Grand Canyon and back in 2 days for a charity and training for the world's toughest workout last year, 3 days of Navy SEAL Bud School, tore and ripped my hip ligaments off of my hip bone. And that took, what did that take, Bart? About 9 months, I think, to diagnose it. And then it's been at least a year in recovery. It'll be a year in March since it was diagnosed. And the good news is that I've beat the recovery on that by almost 2/3 the time. But in that process, going from an identity of I'm an athlete, I'm an superhuman whatever, to getting fat. My definition of fat, being out of shape, not having the energy, and frankly, a lot of depression. It was very, very difficult because I didn't have answers. I didn't have a path forward. I didn't see a compelling future. I was being told your best days are behind you physically, and to settle. That is not an easy pill for me to swallow. I'm a type A personality. And I tried being type B. I failed miserably.
So yeah, I know you, and you've been training me as well. So you hold no mercy. Actually, you have a lot of compassion. That's why I respect you so much. But truthfully, what was the shift that made the difference? I mean, what was the change in identity, if you will, that you decided upon not to be in that space? Because here again, it's a matter of, so many people are stuck in this space. And you mentioned a key word, clarity, and that's my platform. What I typically like to share with people, it's what you don't know, and this platform is specifically designed to answer that, to help you find out. So for people listening, then for you, where was that opportunity to shift that identity to then beat the odds by so much?
Yeah, so what I had to do, and we started this off with, maybe the tools and things that you've used in the past are exactly what's preventing you from creating your next legendary, compelling future. So I started and I looked at in the past, and I looked at what were the tool sets, the mindset that allowed me to push forward. The world knocked me down. The question wasn't whether you're going to get knocked down. The question is whether when you take the hits, can you keep getting up? Can you keep moving forward, as Sylvester Stallone said in one of his movies. And I decided to keep moving forward. I decided to get back up. And there were a lot of naysayers. And that's the thing is some of your biggest naysayers, Bart, are going to come from the people who love you the most, who mean the most, because they see, oh, you're in pain. They want to take away that pain. And so what do? They offer you advice, while it's well-intended, has poor judgment. Oh, stop doing that. And the reality is, if I stopped doing that, I would not, one, be who I am. Two, I would continue to be a bit depressed. And three, I would not be performing or in a position where I was able to move forward in my life. And so as a result of that, I am now scheduled, as you know, to go do an extraordinary adventure in New Zealand, and then I'm basically spending the entire month of November between New Zealand and Australia doing some cool stuff. So let's lay out what is the process. Once you identify, hey, there's pain. The question is one, do I want to suffer, or two, do I want to get outside of the story and start climbing, working my way out of the hole? And so one is recognizing, where am I getting advice? As Ronald Reagan said, trust but verify. So great, you might have doctors that are very knowledgeable, but you need to verify whether that knowledge applies to you. When people tell me, I've learned when I have injuries, when I go to the doctor, this is where I'm going. What can you do to get me there, versus the staple of, well, Bart, at your age, you should really be slowing down. At your age, most people aren't doing that. Well, stop being like most people is what I would say. Normal's boring. Be extraordinary. Be legendary. So I've got a sandwich to build for people. How about we actually offer this up in the metaphor of a sandwich?
Yeah, absolutely. But hey, before you do that, your headset might be crackling a little bit. I don't know if that's you or it's me or something. Just so you're aware of it. So we'll just continue with it, but there's a little bit of a crackle there.
Okay. Any better?
Yeah, it's actually better.
Okay.
Really better.
Great. So I just adjusted a little bit. So if we looked at your strategy, or we looked at really creating a legendary lifestyle is something that's juicy and delicious. I can think of nothing better than a sandwich. So the top layer, that top layer of bread is your strategy. And what are the strategies you're using? Do the strategies you used to use, do they still apply? The old adage, change is inevitable. Growth is optional.
Right.
So take a look. Are your tool sets? Do you need to go out and get some new tools? Do you need to invest in new tools? Or will some of the old ones still work?
I'm writing this down. This is great stuff.
The second is look at where you're getting that advice. You can trust that these are knowledgeable people. Trust that these are people that may love you or have the best intentions for you. But you've got to verify and validate whether that information applies to you. For me, I kind of use a little bit of the East and West science. I use the spiritual energy as well as hard science in order to be able to get my physical body back where I need it to be. And then I look at the bottom layer is your tactical execution. So the top slice of the bread is your strategy. The bottom slice of the bread is your tactical execution. If you look at any CEO that we may know, Steve Jobs comes to mind, whether you like the guy or don't like him. He had an exceptional ability to do both strategic and tactical execution, and is extremely rare among executives. They're usually good at one or the other, not usually two. And Jobs was able to take a strategy, take the big picture and the vision, and then be able to go single mission how to execute on that strategy. So now we have two pieces of bread. In the middle is what we call the good stuff. And so in there, what we really have is the filler in our nutrition. Those are our values, our purposes or purpose, and our feelings. And so many people really forget about this. They get so caught up, as Tony Robbins would say, he's got a whole product on time management. And everybody in time management part, here's my objective, and I want to get those results. They start taking a lot of action. But if we don't have clarity, what are our values? What are the qualities that we enjoyed in the very beginning? In the moments that we had extraordinary, memories, we generalize those, and we don't take a step back and see what were the values, what were the characteristics that were really present there. That's the filler of a great sandwich, right? It's not just two pieces of bread. Maybe it's French bread. I love French bread, especially from Paris. But it's really what's inside of those two slices that matters. And so we have to take time, and maybe it means that we have to have the patience to go find a really good type of cheese that you like, or to slice thinly the meat that you want in there, or if you're vegetarian, the vegetables that you're going to be put in there. Maybe you have to even wait for the tomatoes to ripen to be able to find them in season. But really, it's about the nutrition inside of that sandwich. The nutrition in really creating a legendary lifestyle means, what are your values? Second is just, what is your purpose? There's an old saying, it's not your strength that holds you to your purpose. It's the strength of the purpose itself. And so for me, it wasn't just that I was an athlete. It was, look, this is my lifestyle. This is how I live life, and it's a must for me. I had to be able to go back and be an example to my son, to be an active, healthy person for my wife, to be able to lead by example to my clients and to other coaches. And then we can really look at, what is purpose? So many people want to put purpose as it's a single thing. It's a job. It's a title. It's the car you drive. Purpose is a feeling. So if we fill our sandwich with the values and our feelings, the emotions we want to experience, here's the beautiful thing about that. Then we are open to all kinds of vehicles, all kinds of resources that can fill that bill. We can change it out for rye, French sourdough, wheat, multigrain, whatever, right? The wrapping around that then becomes just something that puts a smile on your face. It becomes the additive, right? But that's what holds it all together. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I love the metaphor, and I'm gonna take that metaphor in my Bugatti, which is $3 million that costs you go 220 miles an hour. But what's the juice, the fuel, the energy is what makes the difference, and that's what you're saying. I mean, you can have the ideal vehicle, the strategies and the tactical execution, but the juice inside of it, the nutrition, as you call it, the energy that you put in the car. That's what drives it. And what's great, what's interesting, I went to a recent seminar, and I love going to these seminars, and there's so many amazing people out there, and anybody who's into personal growth really deserves that opportunity to find out what they don't know and go to these seminars. And this particular seminar, the one thing that I came out with is that the most undervalued commodity in corporate America today, sorry,
You get there.
is energy, is passion. And it's really a matter of tapping into that passion again. And that's what I did. Really, wow, it must be allergy season or something. But it's really about making sure that you get to focus on what you can be passionate about. And that's the energy. So you're absolutely right.
Now, there's an important piece here. Imagine, and I think this is a piece that hasn't been talked about. I haven't seen it in the press. I don't watch TV, so I just haven't seen it come up. But it's something that I'm discovering, and I'm pretty sure that I'm right about this. Imagine taking a young child and never showing them how to make a meal, never allowing them to witness how a sandwich is made.
Oh yeah, I know where you're going.
Tell them to make the sandwich. And in today's world, we like to poo-poo or downplay, having mentors or shadowing people and being an apprentice. It's something that has died in our society, in the world today. And I think it's something that we've erred because we have YouTube or we have social media, we have the internet, and it's really destroyed the ability to create a template. In the industrial age is when that shift happened. It wasn't just the IT industry in that revolution. But Mark Devine, who's a 25-year Navy SEAL commander, said the industrial age brought material prosperity that eliminated a lot of natural challenges life used to deliver. But it also brought obesity, poor health, lack of a purposeful existence, and a general malaise with an alarmingly large percentage of the population in dependency. And I think that's exactly what we see today. And the reason for that is when the industrial age came, it took the man out of the field and put him into the factory. And at the same time, many people don't realize what also happened is that's when the public school system came into its existence. And it took children out of the home and put them into a very feminine environment. And I'm not saying feminine is different than female, but what it is, it removed the masculine energy. And then what we did is we had the women's right, which was long overdue, come into existence, but it overdid it and said, hey, if you want to be a woman at the board level, you have to trade in the dress for a pair of slacks. And so it went too far. Women do not have to trade in their feminine to be powerful. And I think our society misunderstands feminine. If you want to be powerful, you have to be masculine. And feminine is extremely powerful. But it doesn't mean that we have to give one up for the other. So instead of it becoming an or conversation, we can switch that to being an and. You are both feminine and masculine. But it also means that we need to look for the templates. And one of the reasons I was able to recover from my shoulder and my hip is because I was able to be around extraordinary people like yourself and like other coaches that I get the privilege to be around. I coach some very elite individuals out there. And because of that, I'm in an environment where I can pull templates and I can say, hey, how did you do that? And I can replicate that and make my distinctions. But if you only have one dot, you're not going to get all that. You're going to have a hard time trust but verify. And so I can create these sandwiches that have a lot of really nutritious values and purpose in them, because I have templates that I can pull from and learn from. And I think our society needs to get back to not just finding mentors, but becoming mentors. So what are you really extraordinary at? What are you doing that's legendary? And where can you then offer that to your immediate family or to people outside of your family?
I think that was really well said. And just to add to that, with the development of the Industrial Revolution, our lifestyles have been so enhanced But also with that, there's also been that dissolution of community. And I think community is huge. And I think basically that's also what you're referring to. And it's interesting, very interesting statistics. I shared this with somebody the other day and they didn't believe me. They said, people that are part of a religious organization, doesn't matter which one it is, but the studies I think reflected most of the Christian organizations, and they just show that these people were a lot happier, lived longer, and healthier. And the immediate conclusion is, well, it's because of the religion. And my belief is different. It's because it's of a a community with values, a community with support, and a community with challenges. And like you and I, we are part of an incredible community. It's not a religious one, but there again, it's about seeing other people being very successful, getting that inspiration to model that and reach the same level. But in addition to that, also really giving that support and seeing when people are struggling, because we all do. And in some of the work that I'm doing, modeling genius, one of the key factors of modeling genius is the support. You cannot do it on your own. And so, this is what's exciting about what we're trying to do here, is finding those ways that we can support each other, help each other become more, and then help the rest of the world. And the way that I like to phrase it, and also part of this platform, why I like to share, what you don't know, is really about finding out what is your identity. And with that, when you can hone it, when you're able to dial in, when you have that awareness of who you really are, not all the shoulds and everything else and all the rules that are out there, but when you find that alignment within yourself, that's when you get to have, and I think you mentioned this earlier, your own independence. You're independent of institutions and entities, sex, or whatever it is, so that you can decide for yourself and be accountable for yourself and make the life the way that you want. And then you're in that space of contribution. And that's why I have a lot of respect for you, because you're in that place with incredible identity, independence, and it's amazing how much you contribute to the rest of the world. I mean, you've got charitable organizations in Guatemala, you do these things, you're constantly helping other people in this community to become more. And yes, you're right. That's what we need more of. And the conversation I had this morning with a person who said, look, she wasn't necessarily advocating socialism, communism, or whatever, but she identified a problem. The problem is, in this society, because of technology, there are less and less jobs, and there are less and less opportunities, supposedly, for people to do well. And so it's the government's responsibility to take care of these people. And I said to her, no, it's not. It has to be a community responsibility to help each other. The whole family unit has been dissolved. We need to get back that together. And people need to be responsible for themselves. We need to have that individual revolution. So
yeah, I would agree. To kind of recap a little bit of where my journey's taken me, it's about change is inevitable, growth is optional. And what I did is I learned in that model is to look at what has changed. And have I changed? Am I growing with that? So I looked back and said, okay, here's the things that used to allow me to be healthy in my 20s or 30s. And then from your 40s and 50s, that's going to change. And so I had to change the ways that I go about being healthy, that I can actually be a strong human being in my physical body, which also then contributes to my head. Second is what is the process to do that is the sandwich, and that is strategy is the top, tactical as the bottom layer. But what's most important is the strength of your purpose. That filling, the juicy, delicious sandwich is what you put in there, and that's really your values, your purpose, and your feelings. And it's to recognize in that what has changed in society is that we can't eat the things that we used to eat as farmers because we're not farmers. We're not an agriculture society. So you have to change your behavior. You have to change your habits, which means getting out and creating a community if it doesn't exist, and modeling after several people. And a big piece of that is really about asking active questions. As you said, the big debate of whether the government should take care of us, has an obligation or not. We won't get into the politics. What I will say, though, as an example, again, whether you like him or not, is John F. Kennedy, the president, made a extraordinary active statement. And he said, ask not what your country can do for you.
Yep.
Ask what you can do for your country. So instead of us living in effect and waiting for somebody to come with the saving grace, go out and give your gift to the world. Because I can guarantee you do something better than I do. And I guarantee I do something that's unique that will serve other people. And you'd be amazed at how that little mustard seed can grow into a very strong tree if you just nourish it and you do the work. But don't make the mistake that it's not going to be, that there won't be pain involved. It means that there's going to be work.
No, you're absolutely right. And what I like to do is kind of slowly wrap up with something we talked about earlier, because it's one thing to have that purpose, it's one thing to have the strategy and everything else. And what I find through my coaching too is that we've learned, and I wrote something great on Facebook the other day about how as we grow up we're being told how wrong we are, and you can't do this and you can't do that. This is what's wrong. And so we kind of minimize and downplay ourselves. And so when it comes to language, making, as you would say it, delicious language, just livening it up so that there's energy within that in itself, that if you have a great purpose or a great idea, that you can enhance the feelings that you can generate when you identify yourself as not just a father, but what's the term that you use?
Super dad.
Super dad. I mean, just one word difference totally changes the identity. Just share a little bit. I mean, what's your perspective on language, and how can we best use it?
Yeah, language is something that in our society, and I think you can see it in journalism today. If you look at how lazy our society's become, we put stuff out on the internet, we don't do the spell check, we don't do the work, we turn in a draft thinking that that's good enough. And the reality is that's often what we're doing in our own lives. So for some people, the word father may have positive or negative connotations depending on your history, your background, right? But the reality is that there's really no charge in that word for most people. It's a neutral, flat energy. I mean, if you measured it, there's not a lot of megahertz of energy in that. And so one of the things I do is I'm very deliberate with the language that I use. And so I chose to be super dad. Because super dad is not the guy you're going to see sitting on the couch, drinking a beer, watching football, right? To be super dad means I have to be an active participant in my son's life. It means I need to be the example. Yep. And so I embody an identity that allows me to visualize, allows me to get my arms around what would that actually encompass, and I can hear the giggles. I can hear the active participation. It means that I'm a participant as that role in my son's life. And so I use that as the really is the motivator, as a reminder of what role I should be actively playing in my son's life.
And that's absolutely wonderful, because as a coach, one of the first things that I get started with them is to figure out, okay, what is their identity? And oftentimes, well, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, and it says, well, no. In the meantime, I've heard a lot more about them, and then I help them recreate a much more fun and dynamic and energized identity of themselves that is a lot of fun and very refreshing. And again, it's a reminder of either who we really are, and that's again something that I think all people should do. And we were reminded about this, in a call recently, is to remind yourself what's great about you. What's great about life, and not necessarily have to focus on what you're grateful for, but what's great about you, who you are, the wonderful qualities that you are, because so often we forget about that. And making that even more juicy makes us feel a lot better about ourselves. And then guess what? It's going to be a lot easier for us to accomplish the things that we once thought were, in fact, even impossible. But because of that delicious language that we get to use. And the fun part is when you use that with other people, with your partners, with your kids, and you make them feel great. And it's like, wow, this life is a lot more fun, and it's really at our fingertips. I mean, we don't have to go do some crazy stuff, to get the recognition of how great we really are.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to evolve that. So my role as a husband, again, not so much in there with me, went from Atlas spouse, which appropriately got heavy, holding up the weight of the world so my wife's, life is easier. And again, careful that, you don't take that gift away from somebody to build the muscle, taking that pain away. That then evolved into radiance, worship, or tone, which for several years worked really well. I'm there to create and help instill a model where her radiance can come through in her feminine and her strength and her masculine. And then I changed it to really wanting to keep that marriage at an extraordinary level takes an extraordinary amount of work. And that then evolved into recently now is king in control of my emotions. And so now how I show up is, and I hate to say it, I've been here myself, Bart, but there's too many men out there that are just a bunch of sissies today.
Yeah.
And so what do is they overcompensate and become a bunch of bullies, right? They become the Gunther, and then they dominate their spouse or their children through aggressive verbal abuse. Oh, I'm not beating my wife. Well, not physically, but you're beating them up daily in your language. And so I looked at that and said, I can improve on that myself. And so then I evolved that relationship to king in control of my emotions, which allows me to personally show up as vulnerable but in control of my emotions, which is really, in my viewpoint, what a real man is. A man who is able to be vulnerable, but still maintains composure. And make no mistake, somebody tries to hurt my family, I'm in control. I will bear that sword if I need to. But I use my words and I'm in very control of my language, which means I can be a king and be composed at the same time, be real. So evolve.
Yeah. And that's what's great. And the cool thing is that that's where, you find your own personal alignment, where you find your authenticity, where you feel good, in your head, in your heart, in your body, everything, in sync. And you're right. It takes work. And sometimes it's scary as hell. I mean, really, some of the things that I've had to go through, and I'm sure you've had to go through, and most people, but the rewards are tremendous. And that's what I love about this whole idea of personal growth and being challenged, getting out your comfort zone, doing things that you otherwise wouldn't do. And like I posted the other day, on my Facebook page, where's your line? Are you ready to get out of that comfort zone? And I see these guys in these jet suits or whatever they call them, just jumping off on a cliff. And I thought, holy crap, that's some really cool stuff. Now that's one thing that I wouldn't do, but where's everybody else's line?
Which comes back to the having your peers, right? Having that group that you can trust, but you need to verify that that's the right group for you. Maybe you don't want to hang around the guys that are jumping off cliffs. Maybe that's not the right group for you, to say, hey, we're going to go out and run a marathon when you're, 200 pounds overweight. Look, you got to trust that there are good groups out there, but get involved with them so that you can actually model other people, but verify that those values, that the layers in between that bread are values that you support, are values that are embraced to make things better rather than tear people down. If you're hanging around people that are tearing you down, don't hang around them.
Yeah, it's the company you keep is the life that you become. So I really want to thank you today, Chad. As always, we had a great interview on Worldwide, Radio Star Worldwide a while back, talking about your book and talking about some of the other things that you're really passionate about. And it's it's delicious to be talking to you, to sharing language with you, because you're such an inspiration. You're here to change the world, make a better place. And for anybody listening, go to www.chadecooper.com. Get the information there. He's a phenomenal coach, and we all need coaches in our lives. We all need those mentors, and we don't always get them for free. And sometimes the best things that we can do is we can make our own investment into our own future by getting the right people on our team as well. And Chad Cooper for sure is one of those people. And I really want to thank you for today. And again, it's about new voices, new solutions. What we don't know, and you've really put a lot of light on that. So I want to thank you, Chad.
It is my pleasure, Bart. I always have a great time on your show. And there's kind of a model that I use. You're talking about, free, and I kind of always have followed the good and cheap and good. So, that's where I'm working. You've got the book coming out in May, group membership site as well. Decide what is your objective, how fast you want to get there. If you're comfortable taking a slow boat to China, then it can be price affordable. If you need to get there quick, guess what? That ticket's going to be a little bit more expensive to get there. So what I'm constructing and really working to do is to be able to reach people in a budget that fits within their realistic. But anything that is free, they say there's no free lunch, and I think it's true. So if you find that you can find a coach for free, you got to have skin in the game. Yeah. So whether that means that you do charity or whatever, make sure you have skin in the game so that you actually do the work. It's been a pleasure. Thank you as always, Bart.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon.